Welcome everyone, I'm Dale and this is Cinema Historia. A retired detective and his wife, a missing husband, and is it murder at midnight? This week we're going back to 1936 for a murder mystery comedy film called After the Thin Man, starring William Powell, Myrna Loy, James Stewart, and Eliza Landy, and their dog played by Skippy, and this is directed by W.S. Van Dyke. So let's get inside and begin our story. So, where does our story begin this week? Well, our story begins with Nick and Nora Charles, played by William Powell and Myrna Loy, and their dog Asta, played by Skippy. They're packing as they return home on the Sunset Limited train to their home in San Francisco on New Year's Eve. Exhausted from their trip, wanting to spend New Year's Eve in bed, they come home to a house of unexpected celebrating guests. Soon after, they get a call from cousin Selma, played by Eliza Landy, where Nora's stuffy family expects the couple to join them for a formal dinner. Upon arrival, Nick is disliked by Nora's Aunt Catherine, the family matriarch, calling him a former flatfoot, being considered beneath Nora's standards. Selma tells Nick and Nora that her husband Robert has been missing for 3 days, successfully convinces Nick in helping to locate him. Another guest arrives, David Graham, played by James Stewart, Selma's earlier fiancé, still in love with her, is an old friend of Nora's family. Knowing where Robert is, David calls him and offers to pay Robert $25,000 to leave and to grant Selma a divorce. After leaving the dinner party, Nick and Nora end up at the Lychee Club, a Chinese nightclub, where they bump into Robert. Finding out Robert has been having an affair with Polly, the club's star performer. Unknown to Robert, however, Polly and club owner Dancer are planning to steal the money that David is paying out. Polly's brother Phil Burns shows up and also wants money, but is thrown out by Dancer. After accepting David's offer and now paid off, Robert goes back to Selma's to retrieve some clothes and to say goodbye. Meanwhile, Dancer, nightclub co-owner Lum Key, Phil, David, and Selma wait outside as Robert leaves at the stroke of midnight into a dark and mysterious, foggy street. So, does Dancer and Lum Key steal the loot? Does a brother's greed turn violent? Does David get to marry his lost love Selma, or does murder change the direction of our story? Released December 25th, 1936. The film is the second of 6 feature films based on the characters of Nick and Nora. The characters were created by Dashiell Hammett, an American writer and screenwriter of hard-boiled detective novels and short stories. With a 96% rating from the film critic Rotten Tomatoes, this film received a 1937 nominee Oscar for Best Writing Screenplay for Francis Goodrich and Albert Hackett, and those were the two that actually co-wrote It's a Wonderful Life, the Christmas movie from 1946. Often referred to as the best of the Thin Man sequels, it was MGM's 5th biggest grossing film of the year, earning $3.1 million. That was a big deal back then. That relates to about 19 million today. And I did the first Thin Man film called The Thin Man from 1934. Please click the link below. I think you would enjoy it. And our trivia question this week, does this film mark a first in adultery in cinema history? Does this film mark a first in adultery in cinema history? So a little more history and the answer to our trivia question coming up next. I happened to hear a joke the other day. What happened to the man who shoplifted a calendar on New Year's Eve? He got 12 months. Our story takes place on New Year's Eve. What was there to celebrate about 1936? Well, I have a list, making it the subject of this week's history. So, on January 3rd, U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt presented the annual State of the Union address to Congress. On January 24th, Benny Goodman and his orchestra record Stompin' at the Savoy for Victor Records in Chicago. On January 29th, the Baseball Hall of Fame announced its first 5 inductees: Ty Cobb, Babe Ruth, Honus Wagner, Christy Mathewson, and Walter Johnson. February 6th, the 4th Olympic Winter Games opened in Germany, involving 28 participating countries. Here's one you'll know. February 11th, actor Burt Reynolds was born in Lansing, Michigan. March 1st, construction of the Hoover Dam is completed in the United States. March 4th was the first flight of the airship Hindenburg. March 5th, the Supermarine Spitfire fighter plane has its first flight. April 1st, it wasn't April Fool's for this guy. Gangster Charles Lucky Luciano is arrested in Arkansas. April 6th, the comic strip Mickey Finn first appeared. April 11th, the Detroit Red Wings win their first championship. May 3rd, Joe DiMaggio debuts for the New York Yankees and gets 3 hits. May 15th, Amy Johnson flies from South Africa to Croydon, England in a record 4 days and 16 hours. May 27th, the RMS Queen Mary leaves Southampton for New York on its maiden voyage. June 20th, American sprinter Jesse Owens sets a 100-meter world record of 10.2 seconds. June 30th, Margaret Mitchell's novel Gone with the Wind is published, and it was made into a movie in 1939. July 7th, RCA broadcast the first real TV program, a variety show with dancing, a locomotive film, and fashion show. July 16th, the first X-ray photo of artificial circulation in Rochester, New York. August 20th, the film Romeo and Juliet, starring Leslie Howard and Norma Shearer, was released. September 10th, here's one I like. The first World Speedway Championship for motorcycles is held at Wembley Stadium in England. September 14th, here's one my brother would like. Walter Koenig, actor in the original Star Trek series, was born in Chicago. October 2nd, the New York Yankees playing the New York Giants set the team record for the most runs scored in a World Series game with 18. October 31st, actor, writer, director, and producer Michael Landon was born in Queens, New York. November 2nd, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation was launched. November 3rd, Franklin D. Roosevelt was re-elected in the U.S. presidential election by a landslide, carrying 46 out of 48 states in the most lopsided election in American history. December 29th, actress Mary Tyler Moore was born in Brooklyn, New York. And Nick and Nora's car, well, that was a 1936 Packard Super 8 Sport Phantom. Pretty cool car. Who else was born in 1936? Well, my father was born on January 14th. Isn't that cool? I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for that day. And the answer to our trivia question this week: does this film mark a first in adultery in cinema history? Yes, this film marks the first instance of puppy dog adultery in the history of cinema. Upon arriving home to San Francisco, their dog Asta runs around the back of the house to check up on the his and her dog houses. Greeting Mrs. Asta and the puppies, he notices a new black sheep in the family and a neighbor's black dog peeking through the fence. Running the intruder out of town, Asta proceeds to fill in the fence hole, regaining his throne. It's a pretty funny part in the beginning of the movie. I'd like to take this time to give a big thank you out to all my viewers, subscribers, and everyone that leaves comments on my channel. There's quite a few to mention, and it's a big support for this channel for the year because it's a small channel, but it's been continually growing, and I appreciate the support. I hope everybody has a safe and happy new year, and we'll see you next year.